I opened my email and saw a notification from the bank. Please confirm the transfer of $250,000. I hadn't transferred any money. I checked the transaction history and realized, my wife had been withdrawing huge sums from our account for several months. And then I found her messages where she wrote to her lover, "Just a little more, and I'll leave him. He won't even understand what happened." I met Rachel 7 years ago at a charity gala in Boston. She stood out immediately, tall, confident, with a smile that lit up the crowded ballroom. When our eyes met across the room, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. A connection. That night, we talked until the venue staff began stacking chairs around us. Rachel was different from anyone I'd dated before. She was passionate about art, knowledgeable about wine, and could discuss business strategy with remarkable insight. Our relationship moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were living together in my downtown apartment. By our first anniversary, we were married. "You're going to change the world someday, Daniel," she would tell me, massaging my shoulders after 14-hour workdays. "I believe in you." I believed her. Those words became my fuel during the grueling process of launching my tech startup. While most new businesses fail within the first year, Rachel's unwavering support helped me push through countless setbacks. She organized our home life so I could focus entirely on building the company. "Let me handle the finances," she suggested one night as I pored over spreadsheets at 2 a.m. "You've got enough on your plate with the business." I managed accounts at my last job. I know what I'm doing. It made perfect sense. Rachel had worked in financial services before we met, and I was drowning in work. The relief I felt when she took over bill payments and account management was immediate. She set up automatic transfers, organized our investments, and created spreadsheets tracking our growing net worth. "We're a team," she would say, kissing me on the forehead. "Your success is our success." By year 5, the business had taken off. We moved from our apartment to a sprawling house in Brookline. Rachel decorated it beautifully, establishing us in Boston's social scene with dinner parties that impressed potential investors. She knew exactly how to showcase our success without seeming ostentatious. Everyone loved her, my business partners, our neighbors, even my initially skeptical parents. "You hit the jackpot with that one," my father told me at our housewarming party. "Smart as a whip and completely devoted to you." I worked harder than ever, often spending nights at the office. Rachel never complained. Instead, she encouraged me to pursue every opportunity, even when it meant canceled vacations or missed anniversaries. "This is just a season," she would reassure me. "The sacrifices will be worth it." And they were. Last year, my company secured a major contract with a Fortune 500 client. The influx of capital allowed us to expand operations across 3 states. Rachel suggested we open a new joint investment account to manage the windfall. "We need to be strategic," she explained, showing me projections on her laptop. "I've researched the best high-yield options." I signed the paperwork without reading it carefully. Why would I? This was Rachel, my partner, my biggest supporter, the woman who had stood by me through years of uncertainty. If I'm honest, there were signs. Small things that seemed insignificant at the time but now scream of deception. The mysterious weekend trips to visit her sister, in New York. The new wardrobe that seemed excessive even by our new standards. The sudden interest in privacy, password protecting her laptop, taking calls in the backyard, keeping her phone face down. I ignored these red flags, burying myself in work instead of confronting the growing distance between us. I convinced myself that we were just adjusting to our new lifestyle. Success changes people, right? Then came that Tuesday morning. I was in the office early, preparing for a board meeting, when my phone pinged with an email notification. "Please confirm the transfer of $250,000 from account ending in 4872. I stared at the screen, confused. I hadn't initiated any transfers. The account number was familiar, our joint investment account, the one holding the majority of our liquid assets. I logged into the banking portal immediately, expecting to find some sort of error. What I found instead made my blood run cold. For the past 8 months, Rachel had been making systematic withdrawals. Small at first, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, amounts that wouldn't raise immediate alarms. But they had grown larger and more frequent. 2 weeks ago, she had withdrawn $75,000. Last week, another $100,000. And now she was attempting to transfer $250,000. I scrolled through the transaction history, feeling sick. In total, she had already moved over $400,000 to an account I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I called the bank's fraud department and placed a temporary freeze on all our accounts. "Sir, are you sure this is fraud?" the representative asked carefully. The withdrawals were made in person, with proper identification and authorization. "Just freeze everything," I insisted. "I need time to figure this out." I canceled my meetings and drove home, my mind racing. The house was empty. Rachel was supposedly at a spa retreat in Vermont for the week. I went straight to our home office and opened her desk drawer. The prenuptial agreement we had signed was missing. I turned on her desktop computer. Rachel had always been meticulous about logging out of her accounts, but in her recent haste, she had left her email open. I didn't have to search long. The email thread was between Rachel and someone named Alex. I clicked on the most recent message. "Everything's proceeding as planned. I've moved most of the liquid assets. The final transfer happens Tuesday. Meet me at the airport Wednesday night, 8 p.m. flight to Belize. Once we're settled, I'll file the papers. He won't know what hit him until it's too late." Alex's reply was brief, "Can't wait, babe. You're brilliant. What about the business assets?" Rachel's response made me sit down hard in the chair. "Already covered. According to the prenup, I get half of all business interests acquired during the marriage. That includes the new contracts. My lawyer says we're looking at around $2.5 million, conservatively. Daniel has no idea. He trusts me completely." I read their entire correspondence, going back nearly a year. Their affair had started at a gallery opening I had been too busy to attend. Alex was an artist, charming, spontaneous, everything I had stopped being as I built my company. Rachel had fallen hard, but money was the real motivator keeping them together. "He's so consumed with his precious business that he doesn't even notice me anymore," she had written. "Just a little more, and I'll leave him. He won't even understand what happened." I closed the laptop and sat in stunned silence. 7 years. 7 years of what I thought was partnership, support, and love, all while she waited for the perfect moment to take everything. I didn't yell. I didn't break things. I simply picked up my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Mark Chen, my company's attorney. "I need you to pull all the documentation on the business ownership structure. Immediately." "Something wrong, Daniel?" he asked. "Just checking some details. Also, I'll need a recommendation for the best divorce attorney in Massachusetts. Today." There was a pause. "I'll send you 3 names within the hour." The second call was to my brother, James. "Hey, remember that safeguard we put in place when we structured the company?" I asked without preamble. "The ownership arrangement?" "Yeah, of course," James replied. "I need you to prepare documentation showing you've been majority owner since inception." "Shit, Dan. Is it happening?" "Yes. I'll have everything ready by tomorrow." The final call was to our bank manager, with whom I had built a personal relationship over the years. "Doug, I need to open a new individual account immediately. And I need to discuss removing someone from my existing accounts." 3 hours later, I sat across from Patricia Weller, reportedly the most formidable divorce attorney in Boston. Her office overlooked the harbor, and her demeanor was as crisp as her charcoal suit. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. I showed her the email printouts, the transaction records, the business documentation. She's filed already, Patricia informed me after reviewing my information. 2 weeks ago, actually. You should have received service by now. I've been traveling for business, I said. She must have intercepted the documents. Patricia nodded, making notes. She's moving very fast. That final transfer would have emptied your liquid assets. As for the business. She looked up with the first smile I'd seen from her. That's where she'll hit a wall. This documentation confirms your brother has been majority owner from the beginning. You were prudent to structure it that way. It was a tax strategy, I explained. And a precaution. I'd seen too many founders lose control of their companies. That precaution just saved you millions, Patricia said. Now, here's what we're going to do. The plan was straightforward. First, transfer all remaining funds from our joint accounts into my new individual account before Rachel could complete her final withdrawal. Second, document everything for the divorce proceedings. Third, wait for Rachel to return home and confront her with what I knew. Won't she just deny everything? I asked. Patricia shook her head. With this evidence? She can try, but it won't work. Her attorney will advise her to settle quickly. I spent the next day executing the plan. By Wednesday morning, our joint accounts held exactly $1,000, enough to avoid closure fees, but nothing more. The rest was secured in accounts Rachel couldn't access. I had changed the locks on the house and alerted our security company to cancel her access code. Then I waited. Rachel returned Thursday afternoon, earlier than expected. I was sitting in the living room when I heard her key in the door, followed by confusion when it didn't work. She rang the doorbell. I opened the door. She looked radiant, tanned from her spa retreat, wearing new clothes I had never seen. Daniel. What's going on with the locks? She asked, confusion crossing her face. We need to talk, I said, stepping aside to let her enter. Can it wait? I'm exhausted from the drive. She moved toward the stairs. Actually, it can't. How was Belize? She froze, one foot on the bottom stair. Slowly, she turned to face me. What? Oh wait, you haven't gone yet. That's scheduled for Wednesday, right? With Alex. All color drained from her face. Daniel, I don't know what you're. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop, Rachel. I know everything. I led her to the dining room table where I had laid out copies of her emails, the bank statements, and the divorce filing she had hidden from me. How did you? She began. The bank notified me about the $250,000 transfer. You got sloppy. She stared at the documents, her mind clearly racing. Then, like a switch being flipped, her expression changed. The shock vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Fine, she said. Yes, I'm leaving you. Can you blame me? You've been absent for years. I've been nothing but your personal assistant and cheerleader. And thief, I added. Don't forget thief. I'm entitled to half of everything, she snapped. That's the law. I slid another document across the table. Half of my assets, yes. But the business? That belongs to James. It always has. She grabbed the paper, her eyes scanning frantically. This isn't possible. You own the company. I run the company, I corrected. James has always been the majority owner. It's been that way since before we met. Check the incorporation documents. No one will believe this, she insisted. It's obviously a last-minute maneuver. My attorney disagrees. As does yours, by the way. I spoke with him this morning. This was a lie, but Rachel didn't know that. Her confidence faltered. What do you want, Daniel? A clean break. You sign these revised divorce papers today. You walk away with your personal possessions and the $10,000 that remains in your private account, the one you thought I didn't know about. And if I refuse? Then I file charges for financial fraud. The emails where you detail your plans to defraud me would be particularly interesting to a prosecutor. Rachel's hands trembled slightly. You wouldn't. Try me. She attempted several more arguments, alternating between threats and tearful pleas. I remained unmoved. Finally, she asked the question I had been waiting for. What about the money I already transferred? I smiled for the first time. Consider it the price of my education. An expensive lesson about trust. You're just letting me keep $400,000, she asked incredulously. Think of it as a severance package for 7 years of performance. But Rachel? I leaned forward. If you contest the divorce terms or come after the business, those fraud charges will be filed. The choice is yours: walk away with $400,000 or risk losing everything, including your freedom. She signed the papers 30 minutes later. As she packed her things under my watchful eye, she made one last attempt to wound me. I never loved you, Daniel. Not really. I nodded. I know. That's what makes us different. The next day, I called a locksmith to change the locks again, not because she still had the new key, but because I couldn't bear the thought of using a lock she had once accessed. Something about it felt contaminated. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. I never saw Rachel again, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Alex had indeed moved to Belize. The money ran out faster than they expected. The art gallery they opened failed within a year. Alex left her for a wealthy tourist. As for me, the company continued to grow. I donated heavily to organizations that help people recover from financial fraud. I dated occasionally but kept my heart closely guarded. Sometimes at night, I still wake up reaching for her. Old habits die hard. But then I remember her words: he won't even understand what happened. She was wrong about that. I understood perfectly. And in the end, so did she.